The story begins in a quiet village. An irritable old woman demands that the protagonist give her more medicine. Magna Grace tells her he already gave her enough potions for a month, so she should still have some left. The woman angrily replies that she has already used them all. She argues that his medicine is basically free since he collects the ingredients from the village, and accuses him of being stingy. Magna tries to explain that using too many potions can cause side effects. However, she snaps back, saying she knows her own body better and only used them because she needed them. She also accuses him of treating her like a child. Irritated, he reluctantly agrees and hands her another month's supply. She snatches it angrily and storms off. As the village's only alchemist, Magna serves a population with an average age of 60, brewing potions mainly for the elderly. He glances around and notices his clinic is crowded again. Most of them are not even sick and simply come to talk, as he is the only young person around. He asks an old woman named Yona if she is feeling well. She replies that she is fine, but mentions that last week's storm damaged her roof and asks him to repair it again. He tries to refuse, explaining that he has appointments, but she ignores him. Magna constantly gets burdened with every odd job simply because he is young. He checks on another patient and remarks that the man's fracture has healed, advising him to stop taking potions. However, the old man refuses to comply. Magna insists that natural healing should be enough, but still gives him a week's worth of potions. The old man then assigns him another task. Magna explains that he has already promised to fix Yona's roof that day, but the man refuses to listen. When Magna attempts to make an excuse, the old man becomes angry and scolds him, leaving him no choice but to accept. The scene shifts to the forest, where Magna gathers materials until a monster suddenly charges at him. He swiftly draws his gun and shoots it down. He is also responsible for dealing with monsters that threaten the village. His weekdays are consumed by medical duties, while his weekends are spent completing villagers' tasks, leaving him without even a moment of personal time. By the time he finishes, he realizes he has not even had lunch. He assumes his dinner will be the bread and dried meat he missed earlier, but it is gone. He suspects Mr. Yagu ate it, as the man often pretends to be senile when it suits him. Magna sighs and decides to gather more materials before sleeping, despite his growing hunger. He admits to himself that his life is far from easy. There is always too much to do, and in a dying village where payments are made through bartering, he cannot even save money. Moreover, the elderly treat his efforts as something natural, offering not even a single word of gratitude. At that moment, the village chief arrives and asks if he has finished for the day. He asks if she is feeling unwell, but she replies that she simply came to bring him bread, knowing he must be busy. He hesitates and asks if she is sure. She reassures him, adding that what he does for them is invaluable and that this is her way of repaying him. He thanks her sincerely, admitting he was starving. There are many things to dislike about this village, yet he is the only one capable of making medicine. Without him, the village would fall apart, so he resolves to keep doing his best. As long as there is someone who can say thank you, he believes he can endure. Later, he wakes up in the middle of nowhere, surprised that he fell asleep outside. He realizes he must leave before he catches a cold. Upon returning to the village, he notices something suspicious. He sees the chief speaking with a masked man who is inspecting potions. The chief demands payment, and Magna realizes those bottles are the ones he distributed to the villagers. The man asks if 3.5 million is sufficient, but the chief replies that she knows the true value of the medicine and threatens to cancel the deal. The man quickly apologizes and raises the offer to 5 million. He comments that producing such high-quality potions in such a short time requires remarkable talent. The chief laughs and remarks that while their alchemist's hands may be skilled, his mind is not. She claims that a loaf of bread and a simple thank you are enough to make him work endlessly. Magna cannot believe he has been manipulated, and he runs away. Inside the carriage, one man wonders where they are sourcing the materials used to create such potions. Another casually suggests they might just be using pebbles and grass, but he is immediately ridiculed. The man calls him a fool and explains that everything has resistance to magic, and delicate techniques like alchemy can easily be repelled. Therefore, they rely on substances with extremely low magical resistance, known as magical ingredients. These materials are exceptionally rare, and the Alchemist Guild maintains a strict monopoly over them, allowing them to appear on the market only on rare occasions. Still, he shrugs it off, remarking that none of it matters as long as they continue making money. Back with Magna, disbelief overwhelms him as he realizes he has been deceived. If that is the case, he now understands why the potions were running out so quickly. As an unaffiliated alchemist with no ties to the guild, if his creations enter the market, he will face punishment. Worse, he has unknowingly been turned into an accomplice. He feels lost, uncertain of what to do, and the situation weighs heavily on him. He reflects that he endured everything only because the village depended on him. At that moment, his gaze falls upon a necklace. The scene shifts. A priestess praises him, calling him a genius. She advises that when he grows older, he must leave the village and travel to a city. With his talent, she believes he could even join the guild, urging him not to waste his potential. He responds that he only wanted to help her, but she gently replies that it is more than enough. She encourages him to value himself more and insists that his future must not be sacrificed. She expresses confidence that he will one day discover what he truly desires, and he agrees. Manga ultimately decides to leave the village. As he travels, uncertainty clouds his thoughts, as he has no connections and no clear plan for what lies ahead. Suddenly, a cry for help reaches his ears. Upon investigating, he discovers a horde of goblins surrounding a carriage. Two girls are struggling to fight them off. One of them, Lucia, remarks that the goblins seem endless, while the other, Liz, responds that they should have abandoned the wagon and escaped. Lucia argues that if they fail to protect the cargo, they will not receive payment. Liz questions whether money is truly more important than her life. A man urgently warns Lucia to stay alert, but before a goblin can strike her, Manga intervenes and eliminates it. He arrives just in time. Liz demands to know who he is, but he quickly responds that introductions can wait. Drawing another pistol, he begins firing rapidly. Liz exclaims that it should be impossible to reload so quickly, and both girls stare in disbelief as he continues shooting without pause. He is using alchemy in real time. With each shot, he extracts materials for bullets from the ground and derives gunpowder from nitrogen in the air. Through alchemy, he forms bullets and powder instantly, loading them into the gun without delay. Having been forced to practice alchemy in a village lacking proper magical ingredients, he trained himself to convert anything into usable material. He forces alchemy to function even without ideal resources, creating what he calls ultra-low-cost alchemy. He recalls his master's words and reveals that this technique resembles gold transmutation. The goblin leader grows enraged as it witnesses the massacre. The bullets appear ineffective against it, and Lucia urgently warns Manga to retreat. Just before the creature can strike him, Manga calmly declares that the bullets embedded within it will merge with the iron in its blood. In the next instant, the creature is pierced from within and collapses. Liz and Lucia stare in shock, unable to comprehend what they have witnessed. Manga turns to the man and asks if he is all right. The man responds gratefully, acknowledging that he truly saved them. Liz urges Lucia to stand up, snapping her out of her daze. Manga notices their injuries, gathers nearby flowers, and transforms them into healing potions. The man watches in amazement. Liz expresses her gratitude and offers payment, but Manga declines, explaining that he is unlicensed. Lucia gently grabs his hand and insists that he at least allow her to thank him properly. He finds himself captivated by her smile. In that moment, he remembers his original purpose. He wanted to make people smile, and that is why he chose alchemy. He resolves that once he reaches the city, he will present himself to the guild, become a proper alchemist, and use his abilities to help others. The man remarks that they have encountered a remarkably skilled alchemist and asks if Manga is heading toward the main town. Our alchemist confirms that he intends to obtain his alchemist license there. The man replies that they are traveling in the same direction and, although it may not fully repay the debt, offers to take him along. Manga accepts with gratitude. Lucia comments that with him around, she will not need to worry about monsters. Liz quickly reminds her that they are the ones responsible for protecting the carriage, prompting Lucia to make a playful expression. Back at the clinic, the villagers begin causing a commotion, complaining to the chief that Manga is nowhere to be found. They report that all his belongings have vanished. The chief curses under her breath, realizing he has discovered their exploitation, and fled. A man anxiously asks what they should do next, insisting they cannot return to their former life of poverty. The chief coldly declares that he cannot have gone far and orders them to find him and drag him back. She incites them with harsh words, and the villagers, filled with anger, vow to retrieve him. They justify their actions by insisting that caring for one's elders is his duty, convinced that he will not escape them. Meanwhile, Manga finally arrive at the town of Kremlin and stand before the Alchemist Association building. Lucia gazes at it in awe and remarks that it is huge. The man explains that the association earns most of its wealth by selling potions. He adds that Manga is fortunate, as a recruitment exam is currently being held. Manga feels confused, and the man elaborates that there are rumors about a shortage of alchemists due to a war unfolding in the West. Manga recalls that even the black market trader had mentioned something similar. He expresses his gratitude for bringing him here. The group cheers him on, confidently insisting that he will pass. Manga bids them farewell as they depart, reflecting that they were genuinely kind people and that his journey is beginning on a positive note. He approaches the reception window and explains that he is here for the exam. The receptionist hands him a form and instructs him to fill it out. Magna steels himself, determined to cut ties with the village and build a name for himself. He quickly locates his assigned station and is astonished by how advanced it is. With equipment like this, he realizes he can create potions with far greater precision. Despite that, nervousness begins to creep in. The examiner arrives and instructs everyone to open the wooden box placed before them and read their task. Magna discovers a heal leaf inside and is immediately amazed by its quality, as he has never encountered such a high-grade material before. However, the participant next to him dismisses it as garbage, causing those nearby to grow irritated. Magna feels confused by their reaction. The examiner clarifies that under normal circumstances, such materials would be discarded as substandard. However, due to the recent surge in demand for healing potions, production has struggled to keep up. As a result, they have made an exception and now require participants to create a healing potion using these substandard materials. She explains that they may utilize the alchemy stations, their personal equipment, and anything available within the exam hall. The participants grow uneasy as they have never been trained to refine such low-quality materials. She calmly reminds them that if the task feels overwhelming, they are free to leave. The man beside Magna mutters in confusion, unable to comprehend how a potion can be made from such ingredients. One by one, participants begin to withdraw. Magna watches in disbelief as they complain about the materials and walk away. He notes that the leaf is slightly damaged, but compared to the weeds he has been using to craft potions, it is far superior. On top of that, he now has access to an extraordinary alchemy station. He begins thinking about what kind of potion to create and soon realizes that he could produce a complete potion with ease. He considers other possibilities as well, but ultimately decides to give it everything he has. At that moment, a manager arrives and asks about the situation. The examiner sharply reprimands her for allowing someone without formal education to participate. She calmly questions whether that is truly an issue, since the recruitment notice clearly stated that no education was required. The examiner angrily tries to justify himself, while she offers a brief apology and asks where the individual in question is. He points toward Magna. Magna notices them and calmly remarks that their timing is perfect, as he has just completed his potion and wishes to submit it. He presents his work and reveals that he has created an elixir. The examiner is visibly stunned. Magna explains cheerfully that he originally planned to make a simple potion, but with such advanced equipment available, he decided to attempt an elixir instead. Klaus steps forward and examines the result carefully. After inspecting it, he confirms that it is indeed a genuine elixir. However, his expression darkens. Without warning, he throws it aside and demands to know if Magna is mocking them. He insists that it is impossible to create an elixir from such basic ingredients and accuses Magna of bringing it from outside. He immediately orders the guards to remove him. Magna desperately tries to explain and insists that he can recreate it if they doubt him. Klaus refuses to listen and declares that under normal circumstances he would hand him over to the royal guards. Instead, he claims the real disgrace is allowing someone like Magna to enter the facility at all, and warns him never to return. Magna stands there in shock. Despite using the exact materials provided, not a single person believes him. He wonders if he failed because he did not follow the instructions. Then he realizes the truth. Creating such a potion from those ingredients is unheard of in this world. He recalls his teacher's words, who once told him that he might even be able to create gold one day. Until now, he had never truly understood what other alchemists were capable of. A thought crosses his mind. Perhaps he is far more skilled than he ever believed. However, he quickly questions that idea. What value does such talent have if he cannot function within an organization? Without recognition, his abilities feel meaningless. At that moment, Lucia and Liz arrive and ask what he is doing. Lucia inquires if he has finished the exam, while Liz confidently says that, given it is him, he must have passed. Magna calmly replies that he failed. Both of them stare at him in disbelief. Liz assumes the exam must have been difficult, but he replies that it was actually easy and tells them everything that happened. After hearing the full story, Liz calls the situation awful. Lucia wonders if this means he is now unemployed, since he came here specifically to join the organization and failed. He confirms that he did. Without hesitation, Lucia suggests that he should become an adventurer. Magna looks at her in confusion, while Liz questions what she is suggesting. Lucia explains that he is reliable, and besides, spending time together would be more enjoyable. Liz quickly apologizes, realizing they spoke without considering his feelings. Magna responds that she might be right, and admits he was being foolish. There are people who believe in his alchemy, and they have been beside him all along. He asks if he can join their team. Both of them hesitate and wonder if he is truly certain. He assures them that he is. They explain the dangers involved, but Magna replies that instead of chasing acceptance from others, being with them feels far more worthwhile. Lucia immediately hugs him in welcome. Liz tries to stop her, but then relents, realizing they now have a healer on their side. Just like that, Magna begins his new life as an adventurer. Meanwhile, Klaus remarks that out of 50 participants, only 2 managed to pass. The examiner explains that most of them could not even channel mana properly, and overcoming magical resistance alone requires considerable skill. At that moment, candidate number 31 steps forward. The examiner reminds them that they had instructed all failed participants to leave, but the girl insists that the man who stood next to her did not cheat. She admits that she could not believe it at first, but with alchemy more precise than anything she had ever seen, he created an elixir using only the materials provided during the exam. She explains that the situation became chaotic, leaving her no chance to speak earlier. Klaus dismisses the claim as absurd and begins listing the known materials required to create an elixir. He insists that no alternative method exists and declares that such claims sound like fraudulent tales of turning stones into gold. Determined to prove his point, he announces that he will expose the truth. He activates a magical artifact known as the Sand of Time, intending to reverse the state of the potion and restore it to its original materials. By doing so, he believes they will confirm whether Magna cheated. However, to everyone's astonishment, the contents revert into a simple, healing leaf. Klaus freezes in disbelief. He questions whether he made an error during his analysis, as he is certain it was a genuine elixir. He then wonders if there is a flaw in the Sand of Time itself, but immediately rejects that idea, knowing it was created by his own professor. A chilling realization begins to form in his mind. He slowly collapses to the ground, overwhelmed by the implication. If everything he witnessed is true, then who exactly is Magna? Adventurers are individuals who accept requests from civilians, and at times, even from the kingdom. They handle a wide range of tasks, including escorting VIPs, slaying monsters, exploring dungeons, and occasionally assisting with simple household chores. The nature of their work is extremely diverse. Magna joins Lucia and Liz in the guild Cat's Paw and begins his life as an adventurer. Lucia and her companions are still beginners, and their guild rank stands at 1 star, so they are unable to take on high-profile assignments. Their very first task involves helping with harvesting at an orchard. Lucia proudly shows Magna how much she has gathered and wonders if it would be all right to eat one. Liz immediately objects, but the farmer reassures them that it is perfectly fine. Lucia lights up with excitement, and the farmer explains that this year's harvest has been excellent, so they are free to eat as much as they like. Magna joins in without much hesitation. The scene shifts to earlier. At first, he stays cautious, thinking the job might be suspicious, but nothing unusual happens. Back at the guild, the receptionist checks his documents and tells him that to create his guild card, he needs to provide a blood seal. Magna looks confused, so she explains that it is used to identify adventurers. It reads their attributes from their blood and shows them as numbers. She also informs that an adventurer's level is connected to their guild rank. When Magna asks about the ranking system, she says it is based on a guild's achievements. The more stars a guild has, the more dangerous and rewarding missions they can take on. This system exists to stop adventurers from taking on tasks that are too difficult for them. She adds that a 5-star guild is highly respected and may even be invited to royal banquets. On average, it takes more than 10 years to earn even 1 star, so she advises him to be patient and keep working hard. Magna says it sounds like a long journey ahead. They finish the registration process, and she tells him it will take about 10 days to prepare his guild card. She assures him that he will be notified when it is ready. Magna thanks her and confirms that everything is complete. He then checks if there are any good requests available. He notices that they have not had much success. Lucia mentions that with only 1 star, there are barely any well-paying jobs available. Liz remarks that they cannot afford to be selective and then turns to Magna, wondering if he is truly comfortable being part of their guild. She points out that someone with his abilities could easily join a higher-ranked guild. Magna reassures her that it does not bother him, as he chose to become an adventurer because they invited him. He then wonders if his presence is causing them any trouble. Lucia quickly denies it and praises him for being incredibly reliable. At that moment, she excitedly announces that she has found an amazing request. Liz looks over the details and realizes that it is another harvesting job. Magna immediately grows suspicious, thinking it sounds too questionable. Lucia points out that the reward is 50 times greater than what they earned from their previous escort mission, calling it unbelievable. Magna admits that it is unusually high and turns to Liz for her opinion. She replies that it is an incredible opportunity and insists they should accept it. Magna stares at them in disbelief and wonders if they are seriously considering this. He argues that every line in the request seems suspicious. Lucia responds by questioning what he means, noting that it clearly states the job is completely legitimate. Magna counters that any job that needs to emphasize its legitimacy is already questionable. Liz admits she understands his concern, but believes that shady requests would not pass through the guild's system. She glances at the receptionist for confirmation, and the receptionist assures them that every request undergoes identity verification. Lucia, now fully convinced, declares that they are definitely taking the job. Back in the present, Magna reflects that although he had his doubts, everything appeared to have gone smoothly. He still carries unpleasant memories from rural villages, but this place feels different, filled with younger people. Perhaps it will not carry the same atmosphere. The farmers express their gratitude to the adventurers for their assistance. Before they leave, the farmers suggest that they visit the village chief's house to report their completion, mentioning that a delicious apple pie is waiting for them. Lucia immediately agrees without hesitation, but Liz politely refuses, saying that the reward they have already received is more than sufficient. Lucia becomes irritated and insists that they should accept it since it is being offered sincerely. Even the farmers encourage them not to hold back, and Lucia urges everyone to hurry. Magna eventually agrees. Inside the house, the village chief introduces himself as Zach and thanks them for their help. He mentions that due to the exceptionally large harvest, they lacked sufficient manpower, though he considers it a fortunate problem. Magna questions whether such a generous reward was truly given for such a simple task, and Zach replies that the village has more than enough resources to spare. They serve the apple pie, proudly describing it as their village specialty. Liz and Lucia are instantly captivated by its appearance, while Zach encourages them to enjoy it as a token of hospitality. Magna quietly studies the food and suddenly notices the presence of wolfsbane within it. Without hesitation, he throws a hot drink at Zach, shocking both Liz and Lucia. He urgently tells them to draw their weapons and reveals that the pie is poisoned, containing enough toxin to paralyze them for an entire day. Lucia expresses disappointment that she cannot eat it, while Magna demands an explanation, questioning what kind of hospitality this is supposed to be. Zach's expression turns cold as he declares that they have no choice. He orders his men to capture the three of them. The villagers rush forward, but they are suddenly trapped by a concealed bear traps. Magna quickly constructs a barricade, blocking their advance. The chief freezes in shock as Magna calmly demands an explanation, questioning why they resorted to poisoning them. He further inquires if it is connected to the absence of children in the village. Lucia pauses, realizing the implication, while Liz remarks that ever since they arrived, they have not seen a single child. The chief exhales heavily and admits that they are correct. He declares that there is no longer any reason to hide the truth and instructs everyone to lower their weapons. He begins explaining that 1 week ago, their village was attacked by a group of magical beasts. Their numbers were overwhelming, and the village's defense force stood no chance against them. Within moments, many villagers were killed, and the children were abducted. The leader of the beast delivered a cruel ultimatum. If they valued the lives of their children, they were to lure adventurers into the village and capture them alive. Their quota was at least 1 adventurer per week, and failure to meet it would result in the children being executed. Magna finally understands why they were targeted. The chief admits that although they claimed to have been disarmed and left helpless, it was merely an excuse. Regardless of their circumstances, they still chose to deceive and trap innocent people. Magna firmly states that such actions are unforgivable. The chief lowers his head and requests that he alone bear the punishment, as he is the one who failed to protect his people and ultimately dragged them into committing such crimes. Magna shakes his head and responds that he does not see it that way. He points out that they are the ones who suffered the most and endured the greatest despair. The true culprit is the one who forced them into such a situation. Turning to Lucia and Liz, he declares that he wants to help them. Lucia immediately agrees without hesitation. The chief looks at him in confusion and asks what he intends to do. Magna answers without wavering, defeat the Beastmaster and rescue the children. A villager quickly protests, insisting that it is impossible. He explains that there are at least 20 goblins alone, and in addition to them, there is a massive monster and some kind of demon under the Beastmaster's command. Charging in recklessly would only result in failure, and the children would be killed. Another villager adds that even if they somehow defeat the enemies, rescuing the children would still be nearly impossible. Magna confidently declares that they will end this in an instant with overwhelming force. To achieve that, he states that he will transform them into a true army. Using his alchemy, he gathers materials from the surrounding environment and rapidly begins crafting weapons, armor, and shields. Lucia watches in astonishment as the equipment takes shape. Magna explains that by utilizing the available resources, he has prepared enough gear for everyone, complete with a variety of combat roles. He then questions if they still believe victory is impossible. The chief tightens his grip and admits that Magna is right. They have suffered the most and carry the deepest anger. More than anything, they want to crush those monsters. With renewed determination, he commands the villagers to take the weapons and charge into battle. The fight erupts, and the villagers, now properly equipped, begin overwhelming the monsters. The Beastmaster watches in disbelief and questions where they obtained such gear. However, he smirks, claiming that he still holds a trump card. Manga calmly responds, asking if he is referring to the creature lying lifeless nearby. The Beastmaster's expression turns pale as he realizes his advantage is gone. Manga warns him that if he wishes to avoid unnecessary pain, he should surrender. With no options left, the Beastmaster yields. Relief spreads among the villagers as the children are finally freed. Despite a few complications along the way, the mission ultimately ends in success. At the guild, the receptionist offers a sincere apology. Lucia looks confused and asks what happened. The receptionist explains that she has already received a report from the village chief. She admits that the association's mediation caused unexpected trouble. She assures them that inspection protocols will be strengthened and that legal action will be taken against the chief for misconduct. Lucia casually brushes it off and pretends nothing serious occurred. She says they were simply helping with the harvest when some suspicious men appeared, so they dealt with them. Manga calmly supports her version, confirming that everything happened exactly as she described. Liz adds that perhaps the village chief injured his head somewhere. The receptionist notices that their statements match and concludes that it must be the truth. She decides not to make uncertain claims and promises to handle the situation herself. Lucia quickly changes the subject. Since everything is settled, she asks for their reward, saying she has been eagerly waiting for it. Liz looks slightly irritated, while Manga points out that money is important. Even if they split 500,000 three ways, they could live for 3 months. The receptionist asks them to wait, then presents their reward. The total is 300,000 gil. All three stare at it in stunned silence. Lucia immediately insists there must be a mistake and assumes the money belongs to someone else. The receptionist firmly assures her that there is no error. She explains that the beast user they defeated was ENE, a triple-star most wanted criminal with a bounty of 3.5 million. After adjustments and distribution, their share comes to 300,000 gil. Lucia can hardly believe the money truly belongs to them. The receptionist then adds another important detail. The 100 Demon Tamer is an extremely dangerous criminal whose bounty is usually reserved for triple-star guilds. Because of their involvement, their guild has been promoted to triple-star rank through special advancement. The announcement leaves them completely stunned. Later, while having lunch, Lucia excitedly declares that it is time to celebrate Manga's debut as an adventurer. They raise their glasses in a cheerful toast. Lucia beams with excitement, while Manga comments that she sounds like an old man. She laughs it off and announces that she is treating them so they can eat as much as they want. Liz points out that Manga defeated the beast user while she and Lucia barely contributed. He immediately denies this. He explains that he was only able to act freely because they protected the children. Lucia insists they worked just as hard and calls it a shared victory. Manga nudges Liz to say something, and she reluctantly agrees. Lucia then shifts the conversation again. She points out that they are now a triple-star guild, which means they can finally explore dungeons. Manga asks if she truly plans to enter one, and she eagerly confirms it. She explains that dungeons stretch deep beneath the continent with no visible end. They contain vast amounts of gold and priceless treasures. If they discover one, they could become rich and live comfortably for the rest of their lives. She even mentions rumors about hidden dungeons. Liz questions where she heard such stories. Back at the guild, Lucia admires the gold coins in their possession. She says it is the first time she has ever held one, and insists they carefully count everything. The receptionist congratulates Manga on his special advancement. She praises his ability to turn an ordinary village into a capable fighting force using only available materials. She says his alchemy operates on an entirely different level and even resembles magic. Manga modestly replies that he simply learned to conserve resources because he grew up poor. The receptionist hesitates before adding that, although the promotion was largely due to his individual efforts, the other two members are still officially considered one-star. She mentions that triple-star missions carry much higher risks. For Lucia and Liz, such challenges are at least 10 years too early. She advises him to ensure their safety. Later, during dinner, Manga suggests that they continue taking one-star requests for now and focus on improving their teamwork. Liz agrees and admits that, in their current state, they would only become a liability. Lucia, however, remains completely confident. Liz questions where that confidence comes from. Lucia reveals her plan to use their earnings to purchase a secret manual. She explains that it is a magical item that can teach advanced techniques simply by reading it, without any training. Although it is expensive, she believes it is a worthwhile investment. Once they grow stronger, they will be able to take on many triple-star missions and earn far more. Magna admits the idea makes sense. Liz also agrees that it is surprisingly well thought out. This annoys Lucia, and she questions what Liz meant by that. Lucia then insists they go to the adventurer market immediately after finishing their meal. Meanwhile, from the shadows, someone watches them quietly. It is the village chief, who has finally tracked Magna down. She scoffs and remarks that he is showing off money as if he is important. The villagers with her ask if they should capture him right away. She refuses and explains that forcing him now would not make him cooperate. When they ask about the plan, she calmly replies that they will create a situation where he has no choice but to listen. She adds that it will be easy, especially since he is traveling with two naive-looking companions. The scene shifts to the adventurer market, a bustling business district dedicated to adventurer goods. Along the main street, renowned shops stand in neat rows, displaying high-quality equipment and rare items. In contrast, the narrow alleys behind them conceal shady dealers who trade stolen goods, along with branches of the Adventurers Guild that quietly handle underworld requests. Duel fights and other illicit activities are openly conducted, giving the entire area a dangerous, dungeon-like atmosphere compared to a normal marketplace. Inside the demon tool shop Sasquatch, a well-dressed attendant guides them through the collection and presents the secret manuals. He explains that purchasing both will cost them 2 million. Lucia stares in disbelief, unable to process that they are actually about to spend such an enormous amount. Liz calmly reassures her, insisting that they have come this far and that it is a necessary investment. After a brief hesitation, Lucia gathers her courage and places the money on the counter. The shop owner informs them that he will escort them to a reading room, where it will take about an hour for the skills to be inscribed into them. He then turns to Magna and inquires whether he wishes to wait inside the shop. Magna considers it for a moment before deciding to explore the market instead, then steps outside. As he walks through the streets, he is fascinated by the variety of tools, weapons, and potions on display. He never had the chance to visit such a place before, as his life was always consumed by work. Curious, he begins checking the prices of the potions. His eyes widen in shock when he sees that a simple recovery potion costs 1,000 gold, while some even reach 10,000. A nearby shopkeeper notices his reaction and casually remarks that this serves as a learning experience. He apologizes lightly and admits that the prices are indeed high. He explains that magic potions are essential for rookie adventurers, yet they remain expensive, largely due to the ongoing war. Magna responds that it sounds more like an excuse to inflate prices. The shopkeeper shrugs and reveals that the Alchemist Association has monopolized both the production and sale of magic potions under the justification of quality control. Since then, profits have only increased. Magna silently observes a bottle in his hand, analyzing its contents. The quality is undeniably good, yet the price is excessively high. If such items can truly be sold at such outrageous rates, then something feels wrong. He once admired the association as a gathering place for exceptional alchemists, but now he feels a sense of disappointment. Back at the shop, the attendant expresses his gratitude for their purchase. Lucia nervously laughs, admitting that this is the largest transaction she has ever made, and her hands are still shaking. She eagerly declares that she wants to head straight into a dungeon and test her newly acquired skills. No matter what kind of monster appears, she feels confident that she can defeat it. Liz immediately warns her that overconfidence often leads to injury. Lucia brushes it off, confidently stating that everything will be fine since Magna is with them. Suddenly, Liz grows serious and questions whether it is truly okay for things to continue like this. She points out that their parents are not supporting them, yet they received the same share of money as Magna. Lucia groans, clearly tired of hearing this argument again, while Magna reassures them that it is not a problem. Liz, however, insists that they are merely relying on him and wonders if such a relationship can truly be called companionship. Lucia's expression hardens as she challenges Liz, asking what she expects them to do. Does she want to leave because they are not worthy of standing beside him? She argues that if they return to taking low-paying jobs, they will barely earn a few thousand gold. She adds that they would not even be able to afford magic potions, and if they get injured, they would simply die. She demands to know if Liz truly wants to go back to that life. Liz tries to respond, telling her not to act spoiled, explaining that choosing how to live is a luxury they cannot always afford. Her voice wavers slightly, revealing her fear. At that moment, an old man suddenly collapses in front of them. Lucia immediately rushes forward and asks what happened. The man weakly requests that they help him reach the alley. Without hesitation, Lucia agrees and calls for Liz to assist. Once inside the alley, Lucia asks if she should call a doctor. The man thanks them and claims that he will be fine once he drinks his medicine. The moment he consumes the potion, his body rapidly regains strength. His frail appearance disappears, his clothes tear apart, and he stands up with overwhelming energy. Lucia and Liz freeze in shock. Before they can react, multiple figures emerge from the shadows. They are swiftly overwhelmed and beaten, losing consciousness within moments. Meanwhile, Magna completes his own errand, satisfied with his purchase, especially a fire dragon's claw. With it, he believes he can enhance the effectiveness of his strength potions, even when using simple weeds. Although it costs him 300,000, he considers it a worthwhile investment for his companions. At that moment, he hears a familiar voice behind him. It is the village chief. She approaches him with a concerned expression, claiming she was worried when he suddenly disappeared and suggesting that they should return together. He immediately refuses, stating that he is fully aware of her intentions. She softens her tone, urging him not to be hostile and admitting that she was wrong. She claims she is not seeking forgiveness without offering something in return. As compensation, she proposes introducing him to 2 potential brides. Magna stares at her in confusion, questioning what she is implying. She casually explains that they are slightly young, but charming and kind sisters. In that instant, Magna realizes her true intentions. The chief notices his reaction and smirks, suggesting that he is finally interested. She then proposes that they move to a different location to discuss the matter further. In the middle of nowhere, Magna arrives at a grim scene. He sees Lucia and Liz restrained and clearly beaten, their condition far from stable. The village chief stands nearby and casually remarks that the brides seem quite fond of them, adding that it may be time for him to head back to the village. Magna stares at her and remarks that she truly is something else. At that moment, the captors grow aggressive, grabbing at the girls and escalating the threat. The chief coldly warns that she will only repeat herself once. He must return to the village and continue producing potions, otherwise she will not guarantee their safety. Frustration builds within Magna as he realizes that he has dragged them into this situation. Above everything else, their safety matters most, so he decides to comply for now. He agrees to return, but demands that Lucia and Liz be released in exchange. Liz immediately refuses, insisting that he should not allow himself to be controlled. One of the men silences her with a punch. She steadies herself and declares that she is fine, urging Magna to fight without worrying about them. Lucia looks at her in disbelief, questioning if she has lost her mind. Liz responds firmly, reminding her that they once said they do not get to choose how they live. They kept depending on others, and now that danger has arrived, they are trying to run away. She questions how that makes them any different from those who tried to exploit Magna. She adds that standing side by side in battle is what truly defines comrades. Lucia falls silent for a moment before understanding dawns on her. She admits she is not good with pain and urges Magna to hurry and save them. Magna recalls the receptionist's earlier warning, and everything finally clicks into place. He realizes he was mistaken all along. The chief grows irritated and orders her men to kill one of them. Before they can act, Magna suddenly fires. Both Lucia and Liz flinch in fear, while the men look around in confusion, assuming it might have been a stray shot. Magna calmly declares that he will leave that side to them. In the next instant, the restraints binding Lucia and Liz shatter, and they break free. Empowered, they launch a counterattack, cutting down the men with overwhelming force, utilizing their newly acquired techniques. The chief watches in confusion, unable to comprehend what just happened. Magna explains that the bullets he fired contained a magical substance known as Fire Dragon's Claw. By using their bodies as a base, he transmuted it within them into a might elixir. She reacts in disbelief, accusing him of using human bodies as ingredients. Magna calmly replies that golden transmutation does not discriminate between materials, something she should already understand. The chief begins laughing, clearly impressed, yet obsessed. She declares that his outrageous talent now belongs to her and that she will never allow anyone else to take it. She enhances her own strength, using his potions, and threatens to drag him back, even if it means severing his limbs. With her power pushed to its peak, she prepares to demonstrate her true strength. She lunges at him with full force. Magna observes calmly, noting that she is finally revealing the power that once earned her the title of the feared 2-star, the Mountain Princess. Yet, he stops her attack effortlessly with one hand. She stares in disbelief, unable to comprehend how easily he blocked it. Magna studies her condition and remarks that she is a problematic patient. Unlike her reckless use, he conducted proper trials and established precise dosage methods. She looks confused, and he explains that he would never distribute something without confirming its safety, especially since his creations are not made from standard materials. He reveals that he tested everything on his own body, pushing himself beyond his limits throughout his growth. With a swift motion, he shatters her sword. He then reveals that a side effect of his experiments is that his physical abilities never returned to normal and instead remained permanently enhanced. He declares that he has had enough of them. However, allowing someone to die because of his potion would leave a stain he cannot ignore. Instead, he decides to administer an emergency treatment. The method is brutal. He strikes her in the stomach with immense force, causing her to expel the potion. He calmly states that she might survive. He then turns his gaze toward the remaining men and casually asks who is next. They immediately back down, refusing to fight further. Magna reflects on what he has learned since leaving the village. The people he admires are those like Lucia and Liz, who willingly risk themselves for others. The ones he despises are those who twist that kindness for selfish gain. That is why he is no longer asking. He charges forward and overwhelms them completely, striking them down one by one until none remain standing. After everything settles, he apologizes, stating that his past has caused them trouble. Liz immediately responds that he has nothing to apologize for. Lucia adds that being shot out of nowhere was definitely shocking. Magna admits that he intended to wait until their safety was ensured before acting, but Liz's provocation forced his hand. Despite everything, he smiles and admits that he is genuinely happy. He had always called them comrades, but deep down, he never truly treated them as equals. That hesitation is why he avoided taking on a 3-star quest. Now, however, he is ready. He declares that they should face it together, as true partners. The three of them share a determined look, excitement building between them. They are ready to aim for something greater, a single chance at fortune. Meanwhile, back at the Alchemist Guild, inside the professor's chamber, Klaus knocks on the door and announces that there was an incident during the temporary recruitment exam. He adds that the matter involves something that will surely capture the professor's interest. Inside the office, the professor studies the elixir with a noticeably subdued expression. Klaus, visibly unsettled, states that he cannot comprehend what is happening. To his surprise, the professor calmly replies that it is not impossible. Klaus is taken aback. The professor elaborates that if every component is extracted without loss from the heal leaf used during the exam, then producing an elixir is theoretically achievable. Klaus reacts in shock, pointing out that most materials possess magical resistance, and even standard magical ingredients typically lose around 70% of their properties due to that resistance. On top of that, the exam used substandard materials. He continues in disbelief, stating that if someone could fully extract every component from such materials, then even pebbles and weeds could theoretically be used to brew healing potions. The ability to rearrange physical matter freely, without limitation, would no longer be alchemy. It would be equivalent to divine creation, a force capable of forming life from dust itself. The professor calmly adds that the examinee achieved exactly that. According to his report, Klaus has rejected someone whose skill level is comparable to that of a god. Klaus lowers his head in fear and apologizes. However, the professor suddenly begins to laugh. He remarks that it was an excellent decision. Klaus looks up in confusion. The professor explains that alchemy products retain high market value because they are both useful and rare. If someone could produce pure potions from something as insignificant as weeds, the entire market structure would collapse, along with the authority built upon it. He concludes coldly that the existence of such a godlike alchemist cannot be permitted. He then orders Klaus to contact the underground factions and summon the witch. Elsewhere in the guild, two men discuss recent events. They note that the Cat's Paw Guild has rapidly risen from a single-star rank to triple-star status, a feat that normally takes over a decade even to reach double-star. They mention rumors about the new alchemist in the party, describing him as a monster, though his true abilities remain unclear. Even magical materials are expensive, yet this alchemist is said to turn anything into potions. The conversation ends in disbelief, as they struggle to accept whether the story is real or just a myth. At that moment, the group returns. Lucia complains that there was no treasure at all. Magna calmly replies that this was expected, since the shallow areas have already been thoroughly stripped. Liz adds that thanks to the secret manual, they were still able to handle the dungeon monsters effectively. Lucia suggests investing in better equipment next time and venturing deeper. Liz reminds her that they do not have enough funds for that approach. Magna points out that carrying heavy gear would reduce mobility, and without more members, proper role distribution is impossible. He adds that extended expeditions would also increase risk. Lucia immediately proposes hiring additional members, but Liz quickly reminds her again that they cannot afford it. At that moment, a man approaches and asks if Magna is the rumored rookie. Magna confirms. The man introduces himself as the leader of the Red Hounds and says that even 4-star guild members have recognized Magna's achievements. He thanks him for his time and directly invites him to join the Red Hounds. The sudden offer leaves Magna stunned, and Lucia looks equally confused. Before they can respond, another woman steps forward and interrupts, insisting they should not make decisions without consulting her. She introduces herself as Lilica of the Triple Star Guild Black Selena and urges Magna to forget the Red Hounds and join her guild instead. She tries to persuade him with charm, hinting that he would receive special treatment if he accepts. Lucia immediately grows irritated, questioning how they dare try to poach him in front of her. The Red Hounds leader responds that Magna's talent far exceeds their current party, and keeping him in a low-tier guild would waste his potential. Lilica agrees and adds that Lucia should behave like a good child and stick to single-star missions. Both Lucia and Liz glare in frustration. Magna finally speaks. He acknowledges their offers but politely refuses. He explains that he became an adventurer to help people. While joining a prestigious guild would bring more opportunities, Lucia and Liz are still the ones risking their lives in missions that barely earn a single coin. He states firmly that he wants to stay with them and is proud to be part of Cat's Paw. Lucia immediately brightens and hugs him tightly, declaring that she loves him and is about to kiss him. Magna's face turns bright red. Liz quickly pulls her away, telling her to stop. Lilica clicks her tongue in annoyance and mutters that men always prefer younger appearances, just like when she was young. The Red Hounds leader glances at her and remarks that she still looks young herself. He then turns back to Magna and says he has found promising companions, though it is unfortunate since they were originally meant to join an upcoming major expedition as part of an advanced team. Magna looks confused. At that moment, the door opens again, and the professor enters. He states that he is here on official business regarding the Cat's Paw Guild. The professor begins by offering a formal apology for Magna's unfair rejection, stating that the responsibility rests entirely on him. He expresses sincere regret for the incident. Magna calmly responds, asking him to raise his head, and assures him that he is not bothered by it. Lucia then asks about the purpose of the request. The professor explains that they would like to invite the members of Cat's Paw to participate in the 38th Grand Exploration, scheduled to begin 1 week from now. Lucia looks confused, prompting him to instruct Klaus to provide further clarification. Klaus explains that the Grand Exploration is a large-scale dungeon excavation organized by the Alchemy Association. Beneath the continent lies a massive dungeon whose full structure remains uncharted. This time, the operation will focus on excavating areas near the deepest known level, referred to as Reach, approximately 80 meters deep. He continues, stating that on the day of the operation, 1-star guilds will be recruited as subcontractors under the 4-star guild Red Hounds. Around 200 adventurers and association personnel will be mobilized. After explaining the structure of the mission, he specifies Cat's Paw's role. They are to conduct a scouting operation, pushing down to the 100-meter depth farther than anyone has ever reached before. The uncharted region is believed to contain untouched resources and rare loot. Naturally, the mission is extremely dangerous, but it is also considered a noble undertaking that will contribute greatly to humanity's progress. Klaus formally requests their cooperation. Lucia listens in confusion, processing the information. The professor sighs and admits that Klaus tends to be overly long-winded and unclear. He apologizes for that and restates the request in simpler terms. The Alchemy Association will provide all supplies and manpower, while Cat's Paw will focus on treasure hunting. Any discoveries they make will be properly compensated. He asks if the offer sounds more appealing now. Lucia requests a moment to discuss with her team. After a brief pause, she admits that the offer is extremely tempting. Magna agrees, stating that it is a favorable arrangement. With supply routes secured and a base camp established, conditions that would normally be impossible for just the 3 of them become achievable with a full expedition force. Liz, however, reminds them that they recently experienced trouble from something that also seemed too good to be true. Magna still retains some doubts, but Lucia decides that they should accept the request. She formally agrees to the job. The professor smirks and immediately suggests signing the contract without delay. The Red Hounds leader then announces that he and Lilica will also be part of the advanced team and expresses satisfaction at having their support. He looks forward to working alongside them. A week later, the expedition begins. Including Cat's Paw, more than 200 participants descend into the dungeon. They take the shortest established route through the Labyrinth City, a massive structure extending nearly 300 meters underground, and proceed toward the forward base known as Deet City. At this stage, 1-star adventurers are assigned to transport supplies between the surface and the base camp. Once logistics are secured, those ranked 3 stars and above will advance further into the main operation. Their next objective is the vast subterranean forest that begins around the 400-meter depth, where constant monster assaults must be repelled as they continue their descent. 10 days after entering the dungeon, they finally reach the 80-meter mark known as the Great Dragon's Graveyard. As they cross a ridge, Lucia trembles and questions whether it is even safe. What appears before them is not a bridge, but a formation of massive dragon bones. The Red Hound's leader calmly explains that dragon bones are far stronger than stone bridges. Liz is stunned, unable to believe creatures of that size once existed. He clarifies that they did not exist in their current era, but according to legend, there was an age of dragons hundreds of millions of years ago, and this layer may have once been the surface world. Lucia exhales in exhaustion as they finally set foot on solid ground again. Lilica remarks that the glow moss brought from a previous expedition has spread effectively, ensuring visibility even at ground level. The leader then orders the establishment of a base camp. A perimeter wall must be constructed immediately, and all adventurers are instructed to remain alert, especially against aerial threats. He then addresses the advance team, stating that after a full rest, they will proceed through the cave beyond the dragon's jaw. Their destination is the deepest point ever recorded by humanity, the 928-meter mark known as the Great Abyssal Falls. Beyond that lies completely unexplored territory. He instructs everyone to prepare thoroughly. Magna acknowledges the briefing. Lucia glances toward the entrance and remarks that it gives off an unsettling feeling, as if they are about to be swallowed. From a distance, the professor observes the expedition and asks Klaus about the witch. Elsewhere, in the depths of the unknown, the witch is already in motion. He confirms that she has arrived at the Great Falls. Deep within the dungeon, the group comes across a pack of armor lizards, beasts whose scales are harder than steel. Everyone immediately prepares for combat. Percival activates his ability, Power Charge, and charges straight through their ranks. Lilica follows up with her technique, Calamity Edge, as the battle breaks out. Magna fires several shots, but they barely leave a mark, forcing him to move in close and strike them head-on. Percival and Lilica glance at him in surprise, clearly impressed by his physical strength. Lucia and Liz struggle to keep pace with the fight. Seeing this, Percival reminds Liz about the manual she studied, explaining that it contains a skill capable of ignoring an enemy's defenses. Liz suddenly recalls it and activates the technique, effortlessly slicing through the lizard's armor. At the same time, Lilica advises Lucia, pointing out that her hesitation is the reason her attacks keep bouncing off. She explains that if Lucia commits fully, her skill will allow her to cut through as well. Lucia takes a steady breath and gathers her resolve before striking with full force. Her first attack barely pierces the scales, but she immediately follows up. As her blades cross, she triggers her skill, and the armor splits cleanly apart. She pauses in disbelief before realizing she has finally succeeded. Percival comments that purchasing those abilities was a wise decision, explaining that the manual they used is considered top tier, something even 5-star guilds depend on. Lilica agrees, but notes that its only drawback is the outrageous cost. She then apologizes to Lucia and Liz, admitting she misjudged them earlier and treated them like dead weight. She acknowledges that they came prepared and have proven themselves to be reliable adventurers, adding that she is counting on them from now on. Magna smiles faintly, thinking that their early investment has already started to pay off. The group pushes deeper into the dungeon, eventually reaching a depth of 900 meters. Before them lies the Great Abyssal Falls, where underground streams merge into a massive waterfall. The view is both overwhelming and breathtaking. While the others admire it, Magna quietly senses that something is off. Back at the Kremlin Assembly Hall, the receptionist listens carefully and confirms they will wait for the next scheduled report. Another staff member arrives and mentions that everything appears to be progressing smoothly. She responds that it needs to stay that way, or they could face serious consequences. Just then, a man named Tosh enters, delivering the guild cards for last month's new recruits. The receptionist brightens immediately, as they have been anticipating this. Tosh remarks on her excitement, and she explains that a rookie managed to capture a major criminal on his very first assignment, making it a remarkable case. Tosh then brings up a concerning rumor he heard at the port. The ship he traveled on connects to the guild headquarters in Milverna, and the vessel that departed before his was attacked by a kraken. The receptionist is startled and asks if he is referring to the 4-star threat-level giant magical beast. Tosh confirms it and explains that even the crew could not understand how they survived. Despite the attack, the ship still reached port safely. According to those on board, a tall witch incinerated the kraken with overwhelming fire magic. The receptionist struggles to process what she hears. Back inside the dungeon, Lucia remains mesmerized by the abyssal falls, while Magna's focus sharpens as he detects something unusual. Returning to Tasha's account, he mentions that only 7 individuals in the world are classified as 5-star wanted criminals. Among them is the infamous Crimson Calamity, and there is a chance she could be nearby. Back in the dungeon, Magna hesitates for a brief moment, unfamiliar with such intense killing intent. That single moment is enough. Percival reacts instantly, activating his defensive skill, Ace Guard, and forming a powerful shield to block the incoming strike. However, even that defense is pierced by a scorching force. In the very next instant, the witch appears before them. Lilica moves at the same time, displaying perfect timing. Percival's sacrifice creates a brief opening, allowing her to strike. Using her skill, Godspeed, she slashes toward the witch's neck, but her blade cuts through nothing but air. The difference in power becomes painfully clear. In a fight between elites, such a gap is deadly. Lilica is taken down almost immediately. Everything happens within 3 seconds of encountering the witch. The group stands frozen in shock and fear as she finally reveals herself. Melt, the Crimson Calamity, lets out a soft, amused laugh as she looks down on them. She lets out a quiet, amused laugh. Magna grits his teeth, blaming himself for the misstep. That single moment of hesitation has cost them dearly, leaving Percival and Lilica critically wounded. He steadies his breath and forces his mind to settle. Without delay, he opens fire on the witch, yet every bullet phases through her as if she does not exist. She tilts her head slightly and asks if he is Magna. Lucia looks confused, unable to understand how the witch knows his name. Magna himself is just as puzzled. The witch responds that it is fortunate, as it would have been troublesome if she had targeted the wrong person. She explains that her master warned her about him, calling him a dangerous existence. Magna frowns, unable to grasp her meaning. She continues, stating that his alchemy causes disruption to many people, and for that reason, she intends to eliminate him. She adds that she wishes to become someone others can depend on, because if she fails to fulfill her role, then she believes she has no reason to exist. As she begins to channel divine magic, Magna questions her words, but quickly dismisses them. He throws healing potions toward Lucia and Liz, instructing them to tend to the injured while he keeps her occupied. He resumes firing while weaving through her attacks with precision. Using alchemy, he raises spikes from the ground, yet they pass through her without leaving a trace. His attacks remain ineffective. He continues to evade, carefully studying her movements. Slowly, the truth becomes clear. His attacks are not simply missing, they are slipping through an illusion. The intense heat surrounding her distorts perception, meaning what they see is not her true position. As long as her magic persists, direct strikes will never land. Understanding this, he shifts his approach. He reduces his attacks and focuses entirely on survival. Maintaining such a powerful spell must drain an enormous amount of mana. Through his analysis, he can see her reserves steadily dropping. If he can hold on for just a few more minutes, he might be able to counter once her magic weakens. At that moment, she laughs, asking if that is what he is thinking. Suddenly, Magna drops to one knee as an overwhelming pressure crushes down on him. She calmly explains that her flames do not only consume mana, they also drain the surrounding oxygen. Magna immediately realizes the danger. The fire itself is suffocating the area. She unleashes her attack, Eschatology. Liz calls out to him in alarm. Magna instantly constructs a barrier using his alchemy. The attack collides with it, and he realizes at once that a simple wall will not be enough. The heat alone will burn him alive. He forces himself to rethink the design. Taking inspiration from a bird's nest, he reshapes the structure into a honeycomb pattern, forming layers that can insulate and disperse the heat. The witch laughs wildly, mocking his attempt, and casts another spell without pause. Magna is stunned, unable to believe she can unleash such powerful magic repeatedly. She activates her ability once more, and this time, the sheer intensity of the flames overwhelms everything. The structure gives way. Magna is swallowed by the inferno and completely disintegrates under the devastating force. The witch exhales heavily and drops to her knees, whispering that she has proven her worth to her master. Lucia and Liz stand frozen in shock, unable to comprehend what just unfolded. Melt continues laughing, her voice echoing across the cavern. In the very next moment, a bullet rips through her abdomen, sending her crashing to the ground. As the smoke slowly fades, Magna stands there, completely unharmed. Lucia and Liz brighten with relief, while Melt stares at him in shock, unable to understand how he survived. Magna calmly explains that alchemy does not create something out of nothing. It is a technique that alters the structure of existing matter. In other words, the materials for his barrier were drawn from beneath the ground. The real purpose of his golden transmutation was never to block her flames, but to carve out space and evade the attack altogether. Melt clicks her tongue in irritation, realizing she let her guard slip at the worst possible moment. Lucia and Liz rush toward Magna, relieved to see him safe. Percival comments that thanks to him, he managed to survive. while Lilica, now fully recovered, admits that she is completely exhausted. Percival continues, explaining that Melt possesses the ability to cast a divine class spell on her own, something that would normally require a group of 10 people. He reveals that she is the Crimson Calamity, one of the 7 individuals in the world with a quadruple star bounty and a 5-star wanted criminal. The fact that Magna managed to bring her down leaves him astonished. Magna shakes his head, replying that it was only possible because they created an opening by holding off her initial attacks. Lilica then questions why Melt specifically targeted him. Liz recalls that Melt mentioned she was acting under her teacher's orders. Lucia turns to Magna and asks if he knows anyone who might hold a grudge against him. Magna admits that there are indeed people who resent him, but he cannot imagine any of them having connections to someone as powerful as Melt. He quietly wonders who could be behind all of this. At that moment, a figure appears. The professor steps forward and coldly asks Melt if she failed. Trembling, she tries to answer, but before she can finish, he cuts her off, stating that he had high expectations for her and is disappointed. Tears begin to fall from her eyes. Percival demands an explanation, while Lilica questions if he is the one who sent the Crimson Calamity. The man calmly confirms it. He explains that his goal was to eliminate a potential threat to the Alchemist Association. Though it seems he overestimated Magna, he continues, analyzing Magna's abilities. He states that Magna's alchemy is nothing more than material transmutation executed with abnormal efficiency. It does not create new laws, nor does it bring something into existence from nothing. It is far from divine. However, even that level of skill makes him dangerous, and for that reason, he must be erased. Lilica rejects his words in anger and launches an attack. She draws her blade and throws it at him while manipulating his shadow to restrict his movement, urging Magna to act. Magna still does not fully understand why he is being targeted, but he refuses to hesitate in the face of clear hostility. He takes aim and fires a purge bullet straight at the professor, destroying his head instantly. Lucia cheers, believing the fight is finally over, but in the next moment, the professor's head regenerates before their eyes. He calmly states that alchemy is a path that leads to godhood, and those who pursue it are seekers of that truth. He introduces himself as Victor Weissman, an alchemist who has mastered biological transmutation. Lucia and Liz freeze in shock. Victor activates his ability, using biological acceleration to form a grotesquely mutated arm. Magna watches in disbelief, realizing that Victor is rewriting the very blueprint of living beings through alchemy. Victor attacks, forcing Percival to activate Ace Guard and create a defensive barrier. In that instant, Percival realizes that Magna is not the real target. Without warning, Victor impales Melt with his transformed arm. She screams in agony as he coldly remarks that she should remain useful until the very end. He then activates another alchemical process, further mutating her body. Magna immediately senses the danger. This transformation has no clear direction, and if it continues to spread uncontrollably, it could consume everything around them. He urgently warns everyone to jump. A violent explosion erupts as the unstable energy detonates. With no time to think, the group is forced to retreat. They leap into the abyss below, escaping the blast as chaos engulfs the battlefield. As they continue falling, Lucia questions why Magna brought Melt with them. He replies that if he had left her behind, she would have died. Liz suddenly notices that the waterfall has disappeared. Lilica explains that the height difference is so extreme that the water has already turned into mist. Percival checks their depth and reveals that they have passed 2,000 meters. They have already fallen more than 1,000 meters from the Great Abyssal Falls, yet the bottom is still nowhere in sight. Magna speaks up, saying he has a plan, but it requires Melt's help. She looks confused, while Lucia questions if he has lost his mind. Magna calmly explains that her allies abandoned her, so she has no reason left to target him. He proposes that they cooperate so both sides can survive. He hands her his last recovery potion, and instructs her that once she regains her strength, she should fire the same magic she used earlier straight into the bottom of the abyss at full power. Lilica immediately calls him insane, pointing out that he is trying to heal someone who just attempted to kill him. Liz also warns him that trusting her is extremely dangerous. Melt stares at him for a moment and quietly asks if he is truly asking for her help, if he genuinely needs her. Magna replies without hesitation that she is the only one he can rely on right now. A faint smirk forms on her lips, and for the first time, she looks genuinely pleased. She tells him to leave it to her. Activating her divine magic, she unleashes eschatology, sending a massive surge of fire deep into the abyss. Magna quickly explains his reasoning. The mist from the waterfall will continue flowing downward along the cavern walls, eventually gathering into a large pool at the bottom. By introducing an immense amount of heat, it will trigger a steam explosion. At that moment, he instructs Percival to use his shield to catch the resulting updraft. Percival immediately understands the strategy and deploys his shield. The blast from below surges upward, halting their fall. Lilica watches in amazement as Magna effectively turns the explosion into a lift. Seizing the moment, Magna orders everyone to leap into a side tunnel carved into the wall. They land safely, exhausted but alive. Magna checks on everyone, asking if they are all right. Liz exhales in relief and confirms that they made it. Percival remarks once again that where there is a will, there is a way. He reveals that they are now at a depth of 4,360 meters, more than 4 times humanity's deepest recorded descent. The thought of climbing back to the surface feels almost impossible. Lilica agrees, but admits that what unsettles her more is the fact that Magna chose to heal Melt. She points out that although they survived this time, Melt is still a 5-star criminal and cannot be trusted. Liz agrees, reminding everyone that she tried to kill Magna without hesitation. Percival nods, suggesting that they need to decide how to handle her moving forward. Melt quietly speaks, asking if she is in the way. She assumes she is, considering everything she has done, and lets out a faint laugh. She then states that it does not matter, as she will be dead soon anyway. Before anyone can react, she steps back and throws herself into the abyss. Everyone is stunned. Magna immediately calls out to her and goes after her, catching her mid-fall. She looks at him in disbelief, unable to understand why he saved her again. Magna, clearly frustrated, demands to know what she was thinking. She responds half-heartedly, saying that she believed she was a burden, so she tried to remove herself. Magna stumbles over his words, telling her that she should value her life more. Melt blushes slightly, surprised that he is genuinely worried about her. Magna then explains his reasoning to the group. He understands why they are cautious around her, but they are now in an uncharted depth where no one knows what dangers may exist. The more capable fighters they have, the higher their chances of survival. Percival agrees with his logic, while Lilica hesitates before reluctantly accepting it. Magna continues, explaining that at this depth, there is no guarantee that a path even leads back to the surface. They might have to carve their own route through solid bedrock. Lucia supports the idea, suggesting that they work together, as long as Melt promises not to betray them again. Lilica sighs in annoyance, but ultimately agrees. Melt looks at Magna and he asks what is wrong. With a playful tone, she asks him to call her Melt and thanks him for trusting her. He agrees. She then casually remarks that if she ever becomes a burden, he can simply tell her to die at any time. Magna stares at her, stunned, and reminds her that such words should not be spoken so lightly. Percival shifts the conversation, stating that now that they have a plan, they should take a break, eat, and replenish their night vision potions. Lilica agrees, but points out that the current spot is far too cramped, and they should search for a better place. Magna notices something unusual in the distance. There are artificial structures embedded within the cavern walls. Lucia's eyes light up with excitement as she suggests that it might be an undiscovered set of ancient ruins, and she eagerly proposes that they investigate further. Meanwhile, Klaus observes that the entire rock platform was completely obliterated, remarking that such destruction is exactly what one would expect from the magic of the so-called Crimson Calamity. He adds that if Magna truly died from that attack, then the authority of the Alchemist Association will remain intact. Victor responds calmly, explaining that even if Magna managed to jump at the last second, the Great Falls alone spans at least 3,000 meters in depth, making survival virtually impossible. Klaus then raises another concern, pointing out that the people waiting back at camp will eventually realize that the advance party has gone missing. If they fail to return, suspicion could easily fall on them. Victor reassures him that he has already prepared a convincing scenario. He explains that the client's curiosity led them to accompany the advance party, but they were nearly devoured by monsters. In the end, the advance party fought bravely to protect them and lost their lives in the process. Klaus questions whether such a story would be believable. Even if the Cat's Paw Guild perished, would other guilds truly accept the death of a leader based solely on their word? Victor replies that they only need physical proof. Bringing back a part of the body would be enough. Klaus points out that the body lies at the bottom of the abyss, making that impossible. Victor simply smiles and remarks that they already have suitable material. Without warning, he stabs Klaus and begins altering his body through biological transmutation. Flesh twists and reshapes as Victor transforms him into an imitation of Percival. Once the transformation is complete, Victor coldly severs his head and states that at this point, no one will be able to tell the difference. Back at the assembly hall, panic begins to spread. There has been no report from the advance party, and the client has also disappeared. Tosh notices the tension and asks the receptionist what is wrong. She apologizes before suddenly asking him what level an adventurer from a 5-star guild would typically be. Tosh answers that if they are a leader, they should be around level 70. He then questions why she would ask something like that in the middle of a crisis. Meanwhile, Magna and his group continue deeper into the dungeon until they reach a dead end. Lilica observes that a cave-in is blocking their path, although there appears to be a large open space on the other side. She suggests that Melt use her magic to break through. Melt hesitates and apologizes, explaining that she has completely run out of mana. Lilica sighs in frustration, criticizing her inefficiency. Melt lowers her head and quietly asks if she should simply die for being a burden. Magna immediately stops her. Using his golden transmutation, he quickly creates high-grade magic recovery potions. He hands them to her and instructs her to drink 3, assuring her that her mana should recover. He also gives her additional potions to keep for later use. Melt follows his instructions, and her energy rapidly returns. With renewed strength, she casts her magic and blasts open the path. Magna praises her effort, while Lucia excitedly points out that there is indeed a cavern beyond the rubble and urges the group to move forward. Percival, still observing, admits that he is not deeply familiar with alchemy, but he knows that magic recovery items usually require a rare and expensive material called ether ore. He notes that Magna just created something equivalent without using any such resource. If that is the case, his guild should compensate him for it. Magna shakes his head and replies that adventurers like him could never afford materials like ether ore. He explains that ether ore forms when ambient magical energy crystallizes. The reason people naturally recover mana over time is because they absorb it through breathing. By using alchemy to compress atmospheric magic into a more efficient form, he can replicate that process without relying on rare materials. That is how he creates his potions, so there is no need to worry about the cost. Percival reflects that most people rely on expensive materials simply because they lack the ability to do what Magna does. Magna agrees and admits that he was shocked himself when he first arrived in the city. He remarks that many alchemists likely focus more on profit than skill, neglecting proper training. He has never had a favorable impression of them, and now that they even attempted to kill him, he fully intends to return the favor once he reaches the surface. Percival considers this deeply and wonders if the issue truly lies only in lack of training. Magical power is essentially a form of military strength, and the amount of usable magic directly influences a nation's power. That is why ether ore is treated as a critical strategic resource. Someone capable of generating not just potions but magic itself without limitation could overturn the balance of the entire world. If such an ability became known, every nation would fight to claim Magna. As they continue walking, something unusual catches their attention. Magna's gaze fixes on it, and his expression changes instantly. Standing before them is a vast, abandoned city hidden deep within the abyss.
Here I am, know it's been a while.